Hi, I'm Doug Daniel, and this is WorkSmart Formula. This is a video in a series of videos, transcripts, tutorials, and downloadable PDFs dedicated to transforming the lives of online entrepreneurs until they make at least 6 figures a year. This particular video is about how to make great marketing decisions. Of course, the way to make great marketing decisions is to look at the real greats of our industry and see how they made marketing decisions, then copy their techniques. Today, I want to talk about Steve Jobs and the iPhone. To show you how effective it was, the iPhone was introduced on the 29th of June of 2007. At that time, it had no market share whatsoever. Nokia had slightly more than 48% of the market share. 5 years later, Steve had pushed his market share up to 25%. Nokia had fallen to 3.1%. 10 years after the introduction, Nokia was still bouncing around 3%, and the iPhone had dominated it with a total of 50.1%. That was in 2017. So it shows that he made the right decisions. Well, he followed what I consider the classic decision-making steps, which were to look at the current state of affairs and trends, list alternative courses of action, evaluate those courses of action, and then act. Well, let's look at what the trends were at that particular time. Nokia had a loyal customer base. Apple had a cult following. Wi-Fi was proliferating rapidly. The internet was exploding. The Sony Walkman had been replaced in the market by Apple's iPod. Cell phone technology had switched from analog to digital. That's very important because that allowed the bandwidth to increase, but most important was the data could be downloaded to your phone or iPod. And Apple had put the iPod on the internet. This allowed internet surfing to be done on a pocket-sized device. First time ever. GPSs had shrunk from the size of a pack of cigarettes to the size of a cigarette lighter, and GPS could be put on a single chip. So GPS navigation systems were spreading into the consumer marketplace. Computers were getting smaller, cheaper, more mobile, and more powerful. So let's look at the alternatives that Steve was facing at that particular time. First, he could do nothing. Second, he could try to compete head-to-head with Nokia and Motorola by introducing his own phone. Or he could integrate 5 different devices: a camera, camcorder, GPS, iPod, and telephone into the same physical device. So he evaluated the alternatives, doing a cost-benefit analysis. Do nothing had no risk and no profit. Not part of his personality. Building another smartphone had high risk because he was starting way behind the pack and promised to have a moderate profit. Also not part of his personality. Or he could integrate all 5, as I just described, which had low risk because there was no competition, and a very high profit margin because the cost of manufacturing this iPhone was marginally greater than the cost of manufacturing any one of those 5 devices I just described, because all of those devices required its own internal power supply, the ability to recharge its battery, a display device, and speakers. He only had to do all of that once in his engineering, and then he had to connect 5 different devices to those subsystems. Pretty easy decision to make. Okay, that sounds really easy, but the important point that is perhaps missed by many people that I want you to understand is Steve Jobs was thinking like his customer. The customer trends said they wanted all of these, whereas Nokia and Motorola were thinking like manufacturers. They decided with these advances in technology, we can increase our profit margins and put out cheaper to manufacture and high performance telephones. And the results were rather painful to them, not to Apple. So the lesson that I want you to take away from this is I want you to think like the consumer as well as like the manufacturer, or if you're not a manufacturer, put on your businessman's hat after you put on your consumer hat. And the reason I think you should do that is because the greats in the industry do. So that's copying success. So let's copy success and think like a customer. So if you would like a transcript of this or any other transcripts, videos, tutorials, or whatever, go to worksmartformula.com and look for my next video, which will be how to pick a market niche that fits your personal skills as well as your personality and passions. So thank you very much.